Simon, do you know what total war is?
Total war is when you have all the Nerf guns lined up at the other person and you shoot them off at the same time.
Gianna, do you know what total war is?
Total war is when all your siblings are fighting.
Bobby, do you know what total war is?
Total war is when everybody around you is fighting.
Andy, I know you know what total war is.
Yeah, total war, obviously, it's when countries are using all their resources to go to war and fight with the other countries so that they can win.
That's what it is. These young people find history boring and don't know what total war is. Except Andy, of course. Total war is warfare that includes any and all civilian associated resources and infrastructure as legitimate military targets, mobilizes all of the resources of society to fight the war, and gives priority to warfare over non-combat needs.
Because World War II was a total war, it required the lives of all people to be centered around the war effort. From production in factories to the everyday lives of civilians, everyone shifted their focus to contributing to the process of war.
This my shit. All the girls don't feel like.
Because the men were needed for combat, many jobs were left open to anyone who could fill their places. Women stepped up to the plate. Patterns of employment shifted as married women joined the workforce. In 1941, there were 14.6 million working women. By 1944, the figure, Rosie the Riveter, became a symbolic figure that came to represent working women of the war. The women created 3 new groups, the Waves, the WASPs, and the WAC. The Waves were the women accepted for volunteer emergency service, the WASPs were the Women Air Force Service pilots, and the WAC was the Women's Army Corps.
African Americans were of the millions of citizens who were inspired to volunteer towards the war effort once it was made clear that Germany and the Axis powers were a threat to the American freedom. Approximately 2.5 million African American men registered for the draft and 167,000 served in the Navy. In the early stages of the war, most African Americans were cooks or attendants, but they slowly moved their way up in the ranks. Frederick C. Branch was the first African American to be commissioned into the Marine Corps in 1945, and he later earned his second lieutenant's bar. African American women also played a role in the war effort. Charity Adams was the first African American woman to be commissioned into the Women's Army Auxiliary Corps, and she was also a part of the first graduating class of the WAAC.
The atomic bomb received its code name as the Manhattan Project. The Manhattan Project was the research and development of nuclear weapons during World War II. Built in the laboratories in Los Alamos, New Mexico, the Manhattan Project was the most significant scientific project. This project was top secret. Research started in 1939 because the U.S. thought Germany was secretly producing nuclear weapons as well.
One of the biggest impacts of total war was on the civilians. Although it was illegal under the law of war, deliberately targeting citizens grew more prominent as the war continued. With food, transportation, and factories as legitimate targets of total war, cities took a tremendous beating, especially from heavy bombings. Included in these heavy bombings are the atomic bombs that were dropped by Paul Warfield Tibbets Jr. on Hiroshima and Nagasaki on August 6 and August 9th of 1945. With over 200,000 deaths in total, the atomic bombs left lasting effects like radiation sickness, genetic and chromosome injury, and mental trauma.
Yay!
Yoy.
It makes me so uncomfortable.